Welcome to True Crime Storytime. Today, we explore the horrific case of the Stockdale family. A tragedy that exploded from a harsh rule shook rural Ohio. Every parent has their own way of raising their children, but in the case of a family of stockbrokers in Beach City, Ohio, the strangely strict rules of the house seem to have contributed to the tragedy. The Stockdale family massacre is notable for the mystery of the killer's motive. To this day, police remain silent about the reasons and the details involved. However, this story exposes how darkness can lurk beneath the surface of a happy family, building up and erupting without warning. The Stockdale family, who were deeply religious, chose to move away from the city. Tim and Kathy Stockdale believed that isolating their children from the outside world would help them develop healthy Christian values. They moved to a remote farm in Beach City, Ohio, where they raised 4 sons: Calvin, Charles, Jacob, and James. Kathy was a strict mother, setting a series of rules for her children to follow, with severe consequences for violations. In return, she rewarded them with small rewards, such as listening to a radio program.
Their 4 sons.
We moved out to the farm values in our children.
The day we moved,
To develop wholesome values.
we heard gunshots in our neighborhood, and I knew we had made the right decision.
Despite their isolation, the family found joy in music. Kathy and Tim loved bluegrass music, and their children, especially Jacob, showed early musical talent. Jacob began violin lessons at age 7 and quickly became proficient before puberty. With his natural talent, Jacob won many awards across Ohio, even becoming the Ohio State Fiddle Champion in 2012. A few years after a pivotal event that is believed to have sown the seeds of tragedy, the Stockdales decided to form a family band. The members included Calvin on banjo, Charles on mandolin, James on upright guitar, Jacob on fiddle, and their father, Tim, on guitar and lead singer. Each member of the band also contributed vocals at different times. However, the boys' lives did not have much to offer outside of the family band. Their parents were so strict that they were not allowed to watch TV, play video games, listen to other types of music, or make friends outside the family. The boys' mother, Kathy, viewed dating as a danger, fearing that it might lead to someone getting pregnant. She forbade her children from interacting with any girls, turning what was supposed to be an ideal home into a mental prison for the 4 children. In the early 2000s, a television show called Wife Swap was a hit. In the show, 2 families would swap roles as wives or mothers for a few weeks. The chosen families often had opposing lifestyles to create tension and drama. In 2008, at the boys' urging, Kathy and Tim agreed to participate in the show, a fateful decision that would lead to a series of tragedies. When the producers of Wife Swap saw the strict lifestyle of the Stockdale family, they knew they had struck a television goldmine. The opposing family chosen to participate was the Tonkovich from Illinois, a family that was the complete opposite. Lori Tonkovich did not set any rules for her children. They could wake up when they wanted, wear whatever they wanted, and eat a diet of fast food. When Lori switched places with Kathy, she was shocked by the strictness of the Stockdale mother. The boys' daily routine was beyond Lori's imagination. They were woken up at 7:30 a.m. and given exactly 4 minutes to sit down to breakfast. If they were late, they were fined 25 cents. Then the boys were tasked with a series of chores on the farm and in the house. If they completed their chores with a joyful heart, that is, without complaining, they were rewarded with items like the right to listen to a family radio program. This was under close supervision, of course. "I'd rather not work than listen to the radio," one of the boys said.
Fix those.
Rondas.
This is 100 tokens, right?
Yeah.
That's okay.
I would rather not have to do the tokens to get like the radio.
Not being allowed outside meant they couldn't interact with other children their age. Kathy, their strict mother, taught them a curriculum that emphasized Christian values, with little emphasis on science and facts. and instead focused on Bible stories. Lori Tonkovich, the mother who was swapped in the wife swap program, felt heartbroken when she saw how the boys were living.
God, I feel so sad for these kids. I'm gonna take them all home with me. I asked him what he would like to do, if he could do anything.
Trying to be positive, Lori introduced the boys to things they had never experienced, like installing cable TV and buying a video game console. Although they were excited, Jacob seemed uncomfortable, and James admitted to feeling guilty about playing the games. This reflected the deep level of indoctrination Kathy and Tim were putting on their children. One memorable incident occurred when Lori encouraged Jacob to watch a TV show. Instead of being happy, Jacob burst into tears and ran outside. When Lori asked why, he replied that he was afraid he would go to hell for watching TV, even though the show Lori was introducing was completely wholesome and family-oriented. Jacob's words both shocked and heartbroken Lori, further demonstrating the harsh control the boys were subjected to. Although Lori tried to change the Stockdales' lives, her efforts were in vain. Tim continued to reinforce Kathy's rules, making Lori's efforts futile. As the episode ended, Lori and Kathy had opposing views on the experience. Lori realized that she did not want her family to become like the Stockdales. "I can't think of anything that I would want to bring to this family," she said. Meanwhile, Kathy stood her ground, unmoved by the opinions of others. For Kathy, whatever she thought was right was unshakable. Despite Lori's best efforts to broaden the boys' worldview, she realized that the Stockdales were too rigid in their approach. The closed and tightly controlled life Kathy created for her children not only deprived them of opportunities for personal growth, but also fostered unfathomable mental stress, which sowed the seeds of future tragedy. Kathy Stockdale created a tightly controlled environment for her children, with the unwavering support of her husband, Tim. This meant that no one criticized or challenged the rules Kathy set. In fact, most of these strict rules seemed to come from the head of the family herself. Although the wife swap experience in 2008 brought some small changes, the Stockdales remained largely closed and strict. As the years passed, their older sons began to leave home to build lives of their own. Calvin attended Hillsdale College in Michigan and later became a teacher at a college. Charles moved to Philadelphia to study medicine. The fact that both brothers chose to go to school far from home rather than stay in Ohio may have been a sign that they wanted to escape their parents' control. However, by 2017, Jacob, 26, and James, 21, were still living with their parents. Despite being old enough to leave, they stayed, raising many questions. James had a clear reason. He was studying business at a nearby college and hoped to one day manage the family band. But for Jacob, why he didn't leave became a mystery. The Stockdale family band continued, without Calvin or Charles. They performed at events around the state and even recorded a few albums. However, beyond being in the band, there was no clear reason for Jacob to stay in the small town of Beachview. Perhaps he felt like he had nowhere to go, or simply didn't know who he was outside of his family role. While Jacob appeared normal on the outside, chaos was brewing inside, leading to an irreversible tragedy. At approximately 4:36 p.m. on June 15, 2017, Stark County Police received a 911 emergency call. However, the call was abruptly disconnected, signaling that something unusual and dangerous was about to happen. The Stockdale family tragedy, which had been simmering for a long time, finally exploded into a bloody, violent tragedy. Upon receiving the 911 call, police rushed to the Stockdale home to investigate. When they arrived, a loud bang was heard, prompting them to rush inside. There, they found Jacob lying on the floor with a gunshot wound to the head. Although alive, he was barely alive, and the gun lying next to him led police to determine the wound was self-inflicted. Continuing their search, police went upstairs and into the bathroom, where they found Kathy and James dead, their bodies torn apart by a barrage of shotgun pellets. Tim, who was fortunately outside at the time, was devastated by the news. From the evidence at the scene, police concluded that Jacob had killed his mother and brother before attempting suicide. Jacob was immediately taken to a local hospital for treatment. Meanwhile, people are trying to figure out the reason behind this cruel act. Some speculations have been made about the motive, but nothing is certain, and the police continue to investigate to clarify the case. After hearing the news, Calvin, the eldest brother, made an emotional statement about James. Our youngest brother, James, has always been an inspiration and joy to the whole family. In addition to his musical talent, James loved to dance and had a natural love for people. He was studying business and hoped to pursue a career in the entertainment industry. James leaves a big hole in the hearts of his family and friends who loved him dearly. Tim, the father of the family, also shared the pain of loss. Kathy was my beloved wife of 32 years and a wonderful mother to our 4 sons. She loved nothing more than being a mother and grandmother. Kathy was passionate about learning, natural health care, and her Christian faith was her heart. The tragedy not only claimed the lives of Kathy and James, but also left unanswered questions about what drove Jacob to commit this horrific act. Family members, friends, and the community are still trying to come to terms with the loss and understand the deeper motives behind the incident. In official statements from Tim and Calvin, both appear to have deliberately avoided mentioning Jacob. The only acknowledgement of Jacob's role in the tragedy came from an earlier statement from Calvin, in which he thanked the medical center for treating Jacob, but did not directly mention his brother's actions. After his failed suicide attempt, Jacob suffered severe trauma, losing vision in his left eye and suffering severe brain damage. These injuries raise questions about whether Jacob is mentally competent to stand trial. Police decided not to charge Jacob until he had fully recovered, leading to more than a year of uncertainty. Jacob was finally charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder on September 26, 2018, and bail was set at $1 million. On October 9th, Jacob's defense attorney filed a motion to have his competency evaluated. Jacob pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity and was sent to Heartland Behavioral Health for observation. During his more than a year at Heartland, doctors held mock trials, using legal terminology to assess Jacob's understanding of the court system. However, during his treatment, Jacob attempted to escape twice. The first time, in November 2019, he hid behind a stack of books before being recaptured. The second time, 2 months later, he tried to blend in with a crowd leaving the facility, but was again captured. These escape attempts were seen by some as evidence that Jacob was capable of deliberate thought and action, which could affect the assessment of his competency in court. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Jacob's sanity hearings were postponed several times, and it wasn't until September 2020 that the trial was held via video link. However, Jacob refused to answer any questions from the judge. It's possible that he's unfamiliar with technology, having never used a computer in his life, or that he was genuinely disoriented by what was going on. It's also possible that his silence was a tactic to bolster his insanity defense. Whatever the reason, Jacob's refusal to communicate doesn't do him any favors. His brief conversation with the judge, in which he responded, "Yes, I heard you," was one of the few times Jacob communicated during the trial. However, this brief response was not enough to resolve questions about his mental state and whether he could be held accountable. Judge Frank Foran presided over Jacob Stockdale's trial, but during his first appearance via video link, Jacob did not respond to the judge's questions. This left the judge and the parties concerned about whether he had heard him, and even the police officer standing behind Jacob did not receive a response. Then, on December 31st, 2020, Jacob was declared fit to stand trial by a psychologist. Due to the pandemic, the trial date was postponed several times. During this time, the Stockdale family campaigned for Jacob's sentence to be reduced. even though he had murdered Kathy and James. The family appealed to the judge for leniency, and on April 28, 2021, nearly 4 years after the tragedy, Jacob pleaded guilty to the murders of his mother and brother. The judge, seemingly sympathetic to the family's pleas, sentenced Jacob to 15 years in prison on each count. This is considered a fairly short sentence for first-degree murder. Jacob will be eligible for parole in 2048. His family has reportedly forgiven him and seems willing to take him back. This forgiveness may stem from their strong belief in Christian values. However, the motive behind Jacob's actions remains a mystery. Some psychologists have theorized that Jacob's mother, Kathy, may have suffered from severe obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD. The way she structured her children's daily routines, as well as her extremely strict diet, are possible signs. Kathy never let her children eat anything she didn't prepare herself, even when she went out. Instead of going to restaurants, she always brought large meals that she cooked herself, using organic and all-natural ingredients. This secluded life may have had a profound impact on Jacob's psychology. Some theorize that he may have suffered from a mental disorder, perhaps inherited from his mother. Isolation and lack of recreation and entertainment may have also contributed to Jacob's mental instability. Kathy believed that all forms of recreation were sinful, and that life should revolve around endless work. This ascetic philosophy, coupled with the constant mental pressure, may have contributed to the tragedy that fateful day. Still, no one knows exactly what drove Jacob to brutally attack his mother and brother. This is the final missing piece in the Stockdale family tragedy puzzle. Jacob Stockdale grew up in a highly controlled environment, with no opportunity to form his own personality or make his own decisions about his life. He was completely dependent on his mother, Kathy, to shape his habits and guide his life. This made his actions and thoughts strongly influenced by her harsh parenting. Two theories about Jacob's motive for the murder: rage and revenge. Jacob may have exploded with long accumulated anger over feeling mistreated and controlled, leading to revenge on his mother, wanting to escape and protect James. Another theory is that Jacob wanted to escape this suffocating life, and, not wanting his younger brother to suffer what he had gone through, Jacob decided to kill James as a way of release. No one can be sure what was going through Jacob's mind before he pulled the trigger. In the home videos posted on Kathy Stockdale's YouTube channel, Jacob shows no signs of a killer. The last upload, exactly 3 months before the murder, was a song Jacob and James recorded for James's 21st birthday. The song centers on the fear of growing up, asking, "Is there another choice?" A question that is full of heart and doubt about the future. Jacob and James perform the song with emotional connection, showing the deep love between the brothers. It is ironic and heartbreaking that it was this love that may have driven Jacob to make the decision to kill James. He may have thought it was the only way to free his brother from what he felt was a prison. Kathy's harsh upbringing certainly played a role in shaping Jacob's psyche. The isolation, lack of personal freedom, and constant pressure from strict rules may have left him feeling suffocated. The lack of a clear escape route or outside support may have led to an unstable mental state. Given the severity of his crimes, the 15-year sentence for each of Jacob's victims has been controversial. Some have argued that the sentence is too lenient for the cold-blooded murders, while others, including Jacob's family, have called for leniency. The family appears to have forgiven Jacob, citing their Christian faith and desire to reunite. What do you think of Jacob Stockdale's sentence? Was Kathy's strict upbringing the main cause of this tragedy? What was Jacob's true motive? Anger, desperation, or love? If you find this content meaningful and want to learn more about similar cases, please like and subscribe so you never miss a video. Thanks for watching and looking forward to your comments.